We're here in the village of Swavesey, where a waste disposal contractor has set up a waste transfer site with a concrete crusher right in the middle of a residential area. We're here with Will Wright, who is the chairman of the parish council. And Will, when was the first time you knew of the concrete crusher being brought onto site?
Okay, the first we actually heard of it was Tuesday morning. We'd had no official notification from the county council who issued the licence for the site, despite the fact that the parish council have been waiting for them for 2 to 3 weeks now for some details on something else in connection with the site. And it was brought in on the Monday, I gather, and started operating on the Tuesday, and no notification whatsoever. Our clerk notified the licensing of the site at the Shire Hall, and they said that they had ticked the box and they put it to the Environmental Health Enforcement Officer at the District Council, who apparently lives in a nice little cubbyhole in Norfolk somewhere, and he ticked the box, and so permission was granted initially for 10 days for crushing the concrete and everything therein.
So, you know, the implications, though, are that this could go on in a permanent basis. The initial applications for 10 days, but then, you know, I understand, you know, that the contractor has applied, you know, for a permanent licence for the concrete crusher to be on site.
Yes, we did hear. When we first heard back from the county council, I believe it was either Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday yesterday, we did hear that obviously the permission had been granted for 10 days, and furthermore that there was an extension coming, which we were led to believe was for a year, but in actual fact we found out a little bit more today, that it is only for another 2 periods of 10 days this year. But that would be 3 10-day periods, so we're not sceptical at all about the way these things work in Swavesey. But the door is open, and once you've been granted that, you can have it whenever you want, can't you? Because unless somebody does something to stop it, I mean, we've got at least, I believe, 10, maybe a dozen houses within 100 yards of this concrete crusher. And if you want to extend that boundary, shall we say, to about 180, 200 yards, we're probably talking about 60 residences that are subject to the noise. They're also subject to anything that comes out of it. With the chemicals and everything, we don't know what's in there.
Yeah, because I know a number of the residents are very concerned about what is actually being crushed, and, you know, the chemical content of the concrete and bricks that, you know, that are there.
Exactly.
And as nobody knows, you know, what the materials that are being handled there are.
That's right.
You know, there must be a serious concern with the residents who live adjacent to the site.
There is a serious concern, yes. I mean, given that PCBs are going to be in mortar, concrete from at least up until the 70s, sometime in the 70s, and you've got other carcinogenic bits and pieces in there. I very much doubt if there's not the odd bit of asbestos in there somewhere. You know, and the other thing is as well, okay, they might put a damper down and put a spray on it to keep the dust down, but that's going to dry out. And the other thing is, eventually, it's going to go in the drain with the water, and it's going to be in the River Ouse, half a mile down there. You know, so we can have carcinogenics and everything in the food line before you know where you are. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a small skip coming here now. You can see. Just a little one. There we go.
Leslie, I understand you're a resident here in the village, and you have some sort of knowledge of the effects of PCBs, you know, in the environment. You know, how concerned are you with your garden backing onto this site?
I'm very concerned, Mike. PCBs are one of the most noxious man-made chemicals ever invented. They were used widely in the construction industry between 1950 and 1990, and in particular as a plasticizer in cement and concrete. These are old bricks and rubble that is being crushed. Crushing, we don't quite know what the material is, but But the plasticizer often used was thiacol. There's also undoubtedly paint in there. There'll be mastics, and there's probably other materials. But all of these are loaded with PCBs. The problem with PCBs is that they are indestructible virtually, unless you burn them in a high temperature oven, 2000 degrees. We're very close to the flood dike, going into the River Ouse. What goes into the river here lands up in the North Sea. It gets eaten by fish, and it gets into the human food chain. PCBs are also very dangerous to human beings because they attach to the fatty tissue, and they're also implicated quite heavily in fertility problems in humans. Now, we've also got a lot of farm animals around. We've got horses, we've got sheep, we've got cows, we've got rabbits, we've got bird life. You can probably just about hear the birds twittering in the background. And all of these are going to be ingesting PCBs. There are regulations, but they tend to be played down rather than played up because PCBs are so dangerous. Then there's silicates from bricks, and again from concrete, etc. Silicates are quite nasty materials, very bad for people with bronchial problems, obstructive pulmonary disease, people with weak hearts. Breathing in silicates or silicate dust is really a very dangerous thing to do. So there are some real environmental concerns associated with the site. I'd also add that the site is adjacent to the town ditch fortifications, medieval fortifications, and I'm sure that Historic England could have some interest in what's going on here. Okay.
Is there a possibility that, within this rubble, that there could be asbestos content in it?
I think perhaps you're putting words in my mouth, but there are thousands of tons of rubble on the site. Chances are there are going to be shards of asbestos in it, as well as, I think, probably some organic material. I think some organic material has been mixed in, judging from the smell in recent months.
How about the noise level from where you live?
Well, the noise level is something that we're all concerned about. Decibels in my back garden, the back of the house, about 50 decibels. The far end of my garden, it's nearer 60 decibels.
My garden backs onto the waste transfer site down there. On Tuesday morning, we could hear reverse beeping noises, and then at 8 o'clock this really loud rumbling noise coming from the site, and it appeared that they were processing and crushing concrete on the site, which we were not made aware of before it happened, and I didn't have any chance to have an input into whether this was going to be allowed or not.
So, apart from the noise, there was a lot of dust to start with, I understand. How bad was the dust?
Well, the dust is a sort of ongoing issue because as the heavy lorries drive up and down the drove, you can probably see from the camera that there's dust on the drove. It's basically clouds of dust coming up from whenever the lorries drive in and out the site if it's dry weather.
Well, the lorries have been a bone of contention throughout the village for the past 6-7 months, since the contractor started operating this site. And have you found that that's now got worse with the trucks coming down here?
It gets worse in peaks and troughs sort of thing. Sometimes there's a lot of lorries going down every day, and then there might be several weeks where nothing happens. But then later on you get another peak of lorries going in and out basically all the time.
How do you feel it's affecting your quality of life, living with this?
Well, certainly the noise recently and the noise from the lorries going up and down the drove because of all the potholes and lorries make a lot of noise. It's really, making the use of my garden, not acceptable anymore. It's just, it's certainly with the crushing, it's appalling, really.
Well, we live in, or should be living, in a quiet sort of rural setting, and this is all this part of the village, is in a conservation area. So how do you feel about the site being allowed to operate here?
Well, ideally, I would like it not to be operating here. If they wanted to use the site for some other purpose that didn't involve noise and potential pollution, that'd be a far better, idea as far as I'm concerned.
Industrial sites should never be sort of built in these sort of areas, should they?
No, I think the issue is that it's a historic site.
It is, yes.
And if it was to seek planning permission today, I doubt it would get it in that location.
Well, I was busy shopping in Ely, enjoying myself when somebody phoned and said there's a concrete crusher crushing just behind a residential area in a conservation area in Swavesey. I was absolutely gobsmacked, and I came straight to South Cams to find the environmental health officer responsible. I did eventually get him on the phone, and he indicated that on paper everything met the criteria, so there was no real reason why it shouldn't happen. And I just cannot believe that anybody honestly believes it's the right place to put a concrete crusher with all the potential for dust, pollution, noise, vibration, and the lorries coming backwards and forwards through the village. It's just out of my brain ability, if you like.
I presume then, that this was sort of never discussed in council, the planning permission for this?
No, I had no word about this at all. I know the parish council didn't either, and I just find it quite appalling that nobody had warned us or even consulted with us about it.
Because presumably this is a complete change of use for the site anyway.
Well, the previous owner did run down his business, and so it's been quite a shock to find that the new owner has fulfilled his licence requirements to the full, shall we say.
Because I know some of the residents thought that it was just going to be, a skip site, for for skip lorries to carry on the business, as a skip hire,
That's right.
Not as a rubbish depository.
Absolutely. We were told by the new owner. He came to a parish council meeting and assured us that he was not going to do anything except just have a few skips and sort a few bits and pieces,
So there wasn't going to be a concrete crusher and, moving this amount of building waste that's being moved now?
Absolutely not. We would have put in a complaint to the licensing authorities at that time, yes.
So what does the Environment Agency say about it? Have they passed any comments yet?
I haven't heard anything from the Environment Agency at all. I have only spoken with the District Councillor Environmental Health Officer, who was one of the consultees to the County Council issuing the licence.
So is he likely to get permission as a permanent site for the concrete crusher, do you think?
I think there's a word called over my dead body.